Who are you when no one's watching? Is it your authentic self quietly dormant, shaped by expectations that might not even be yours? Or is it just a lingering echo of voices that never belonged to you in the first place? Here's a truth worth remembering. Until you bring your unconscious patterns into awareness, they will silently guide your life, and you'll believe its destiny. Pause for a moment and reflect. How often have you felt like you were going against your own instincts, bending yourself to fit into an image that feels foreign or meaningless? At some point, we've all stared into a mirror and felt a disconnect, like we were inhabiting someone else's story. Maybe you were told to be more logical, even though everything in you longed to feel deeply. Or perhaps you've always seen life through a dreamer's lens, but were forced to keep your feet firmly grounded in someone else's version of reality. This message is for those who have ever felt out of place without knowing why. Today we're diving into not only Carl Jung's four psychological types, but also what they reveal about the hidden truth of who you are at your core. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time, you'll begin to understand why certain choices leave you feeling drained, while others awaken something powerful inside you. From our earliest days, we're shaped like clay by unseen forces, our culture, our parents, even our own efforts to be accepted. Don't be so sensitive. Be more rational. Stop dreaming. How many times have you heard those words? And how many became invisible barriers that now confine your identity? Jung believed that most people live out a version of themselves that isn't truly theirs, not because they're being fake, but because they've been conditioned. It's a quiet kind of programming, one that convinces us we are a certain way, when in fact we're just playing a role we've learned. Maybe you have a deep urge to innovate, to imagine, to connect ideas, but you're stuck in a job that values only routine. Or maybe you see life through a grounded, realistic lens, yet you've spent your whole life feeling like you're not enough because you don't dream big. And perhaps the harshest truth, society tends to praise certain traits and push others aside. Logic is celebrated. Sensitivity is dismissed as weakness. But what if we've gotten that all wrong? Jung believed that each of us is wired with a dominant psychological function, a natural way we take in and respond to the world. This lens develops early, but it's rarely nurtured. More often, it's dismissed, mocked, or ignored. When that happens, something familiar starts to grow inside us. Misalignment. That quiet sense that we're going through the motions, showing up in life but without passion, weighed down by choices, responsibilities, and relationships that feel draining. But here's a new way to look at it. You weren't made just to function, you were made to flow. Picture yourself living in sync with how your mind naturally works, making choices with ease, feeling energized rather than drained, building relationships that uplift instead of deplete you. Discovering your dominant psychological function, and even more importantly, uncovering the parts of yourself you've suppressed, is the first step toward meaningful transformation. And this isn't a journey about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been before the world convinced you to forget. Have you ever ended a day full of social interactions feeling completely worn out, like you've been on the entire time? Or maybe you've noticed that your thoughts come alive in powerful ways when you're alone, but society keeps insisting you should be more present and engage with others. By now, you might have accepted that this simply makes you an introvert, or maybe people have labeled you as too extroverted just because you thrive in lively settings. But what if those ideas completely miss the mark? Carl Jung changed the way we view human behavior by showing that introversion and extroversion aren't about being quiet or outgoing. Those labels from pop culture are shallow interpretations of something far more complex. The true difference lies in where your mental energy flows. Introverts naturally turn inward, toward thoughts, reflections, and inner imagery. Extroverts, by contrast, direct their energy outward, toward people, activities, and real-world experiences. And that changes everything. An introvert can be an amazing speaker, a performer, or even a leader, as long as they carve out time for solitude and renewal. And yes, an extrovert can be calm and reserved, but still needs connection, stimulation, and engagement to feel fully alive. The confusion comes when we assume that outward behavior defines who we are. But that's only the surface. The psyche works on much deeper, more subtle levels. And if you base your identity only on what others observe, you're overlooking the core of who you really are. Have you ever acted in a way that looked right from the outside, but felt completely wrong on the inside? That sensation of being at a social gathering, smiling and chatting, while feeling like you're wearing a mask, or being alone, and yet so restless it feels unbearable, because some part of you is desperate for connection. Those are clues, signs that you might be moving against your natural wiring. Jung didn't believe that introversion or extroversion were rigid categories. He saw them as inner leanings, tendencies that influence how we relate to the world. And although everyone has both within them, one will always come more naturally. It's like having a dominant eye. Both are used, but one gives sharper focus. So now ask yourself, how many times have you ignored your natural orientation just to seem acceptable? How many jobs, relationships, or life choices have you made just to fit in, instead of expressing your true self? And more importantly, how many times have you judged others, not for who they are, but for being different from you? An introvert might view an extrovert as shallow or overly hyperactive, while an extrovert could see the introvert as detached or indifferent. But these are just projections, reflections of our own struggle to accept that there isn't just one right way to be in the world. Recognizing this reshapes the way we connect with others, deepens our empathy, transforms how we perceive people, and most importantly, how we relate to ourselves. And this leads us to something even more essential. Introversion and extroversion are merely the gateway to something far more intricate. Jung regarded these attitudes as directional channels, ways in which our mental energy is oriented, either inward or outward. From that starting point emerge the four core modes of processing reality: thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. Each of us has one of these four as a dominant function, and when paired with either an introverted or extroverted attitude, it shapes our individual psychological type. So instead of asking, am I introverted or extroverted? The better question is, what is my dominant function and how does it show up, inwardly or outwardly? You might be a quiet thinker, an introverted philosopher who spends time dissecting ideas internally. Or maybe you're a thinker who faces outward, a planner, a tactician who brings structure and clarity to the external world. You might be an intuitive extrovert, a big picture visionary chasing future possibilities. Or perhaps you're an intuitive introvert, a deep soul tuned in to hidden patterns and insights that others overlook. See how this opens up a whole new landscape of understanding? Have you ever wondered why certain decisions completely wear you out, while others seem to energize you and bring everything into sync, like you're finally operating in your natural rhythm? That's not random. It's because from a very early age, your mind has had its own way of processing the world. a psychological blueprint shaping your choices, your strengths, your inner conflicts, and your fears. Jung called this your dominant function. But here's the crucial part. Most people go through life never discovering what theirs is. Why? Because we're taught from the beginning to focus outward, to conform, to meet expectations, to fit the mold. And so we spend years, sometimes entire lifetimes, viewing life through a lens that isn't truly ours. We force a kind of logic that doesn't align, pretend to feel things we don't, or suppress imaginative impulses that could set us free. Jung outlined four primary ways we engage with reality: through thought, emotion, physical sensation, or intuition. Each of these serves as a kind of internal compass, directing how we interpret experiences, make decisions, and navigate life. And beyond that, each of these functions can present as either introverted or extroverted, not just four possibilities, but eight distinct expressions of personality. Now, don't get caught up in the labels just yet. What matters most is understanding what's going on within you, because when your primary function is denied, or worse, repressed, life begins to feel dull, disjointed, and unnatural. But when you begin to live in harmony with it, the world opens up with striking clarity. If your dominant way of thinking is through logic and reason, you likely make sense of the world through structure, order, and analysis. You see challenges as puzzles to solve, opportunities to bring organization where there is chaos. If your thinking function turns outward, you're likely someone who applies logic to the external world, building systems, crafting strategies, and offering practical, efficient solutions. You could be seen as a kind of mental architect, constantly aiming for order and clarity in action. But when thinking is directed inward, logic becomes an internal guide. Your process unfolds silently and deeply, often invisible to those around you. You analyze and strip ideas down to their core, question everything, and usually keep your insights private, not due to insecurity, but because you're still fine-tuning your understanding of what feels true. Now, if feeling is your leading function, your internal compass isn't drawn to logic, but to meaning and emotional resonance. You assess the world based on depth, connection, and genuine alignment. With extroverted feeling, you emotionally tune in to others almost as if their feelings were your own. You pick up on the emotional currents in any room with uncanny precision, intuitively knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to keep harmony. But this sensitivity comes at a cost. It's easy to lose your own center while constantly managing others' emotions. On the flip side, introverted feeling is powerful and reserved. It operates through a quiet, unwavering sense of personal ethics, a deeply held inner code that shapes your actions, even when no one else sees or understands it. People with this trait rarely seek validation. They act from conviction, which can often leave them feeling isolated in a world that doesn't speak their emotional language. Now picture someone whose primary lens is sensing. They're rooted in the present, focused on what's concrete and tangible. They engage with life through their five senses, grounded in reality rather than abstract theory. If sensing is extroverted, that person is highly attuned to their surroundings, quick to respond, hands-on, practical. They move through life in a direct, matter-of-fact way, staying alert and grounded. However, they may lose direction at times, caught in an endless chase for new sensory experiences. Introverted sensing, by contrast, is based on deep internal impressions, memories, familiar sensations, and past experiences that leave lasting imprints. This type tends to value tradition, consistency, and what has stood the test of time. While dependable and stable, they may resist newness for fear it could threaten their sense of security. And then there's intuition, often the most enigmatic of all the functions. Those who lead with it don't just see reality, they perceive potential. They're drawn to hidden meanings, symbols, patterns, and the unseen threads connecting everything. With extroverted intuition, you become a constant generator of ideas, opportunities, and possibilities. The world feels wide open, full of discoveries waiting to happen. But there's a challenge, the temptation to endlessly chase the next idea without ever finishing the last. Introverted intuition, on the other hand, is subtle and slow burning, more like a quiet ember than a wildfire. Individuals with this function often have flashes of deep insight that seem to come from nowhere. They don't always know why they know something, they just do. It's as if they can sense what's on the horizon, even without evidence. Yet because their insight is so inwardly focused, they often struggle to explain it, which can lead others to misinterpret them or view them with skepticism. What Jung presents to us isn't a rigid system meant to define or limit our identity. It's a perspective, a framework through which we can better understand the intricate landscape of the mind. You aren't limited to just one function. You carry all of them within you, arranged in a particular hierarchy. Your dominant function leads the way, but the others, especially the least developed one, often called the inferior function, linger beneath the surface, and it's often those neglected functions that quietly interfere with our emotional lives and relationships. Have you ever had the sense that something within you keeps getting in the way of your own choices, even when everything makes perfect logical sense? Or found yourself reacting too strongly in a simple situation, as though a hidden part of you hijacked the moment? Jung identified this as the inferior function, the aspect of your personality pushed to the back of your awareness. It's not nurtured, it's not acknowledged, and often it's avoided altogether. Yet within that very place lies the key to your personal evolution. Think of the inferior function as a neglected child tucked away in the shadows of your inner world. It doesn't vanish, it waits for moments of emotional upheaval, for dreams to surface it, or for it to show up in the way we judge or project onto others. It's in that hidden space that we store the things we'd rather not confront. Buried anger, hidden fragility, urges for control masked as kindness. The reason the inferior function unsettles us is that it opposes our dominant one. It pushes us to face parts of ourselves we've never been taught to handle. If your strength lies in logic and analysis, then your lesser developed function may be feeling, which can leave you feeling helpless when faced with raw emotion, whether it's your own or someone else's. You may shut down or withdraw not because you lack emotion, but because no one ever showed you how to deal with it. On the other hand, if you lead with emotion, then logic may be your blind spot. In moments of stress, you may act without thinking, only to regret it later and wonder why clarity seems so elusive. But it's not that you're incapable, it's just a part of you that was never exercised. If your strength is in the practical and concrete, abstract thinking might confuse or frustrate you. And if your natural tendency is to dream and envision, the present moment might slip by, full of details you find unimportant, but which still trip you up. That overlooked function is always whispering to you, there's a part of you being left behind. And the more you turn away from it, the louder it calls, through stress, emotional outbursts, or the quiet sabotage of your own progress. That's why Jung famously said, "What you most need will be found in the place you least want to look." But don't mistake that buried function for a flaw. It's not just your weakness. It holds the missing piece to your personal growth. It's your internal compass to wholeness. This is what Jung called individuation, the path of becoming your full, authentic self, not simply the version of you shaped by social expectations or survival strategies. And this path is anything but straight or easy. It requires you to face all the parts of yourself you've pushed aside. It asks you to stop avoiding, to truly look inward, not at your reflection in the mirror, but at the inner image that shows you your fears of inadequacy, the burden of others' expectations, and the long, silenced dreams you haven't dared to voice. Yet when you begin to embrace that shadow side, something remarkable unfolds. You stop fighting yourself. You stop labeling your emotions as flaws. You begin to realize that emotions hold wisdom too, that being analytical doesn't always mean you're hiding, that imagining new possibilities isn't a form of escape, and that taking action in the now doesn't mean letting go of your future hopes. You begin to grasp that you don't need to limit yourself to one identity. You don't have to perform as if you were cast in a single, unchanging role. You can embody your full self. Once welcomed, the inferior function stops feeling like a weakness. It transforms into a quiet supporter, a well of insight, strength, and inner harmony. The analytical mind opens up to emotion. The emotional soul finds clarity in thought. The grounded realist starts to envision. The dreamer learns how to build what they imagine. From that integration, a renewed version of you emerges. Not a better version, but a truer one. More present, more complete, more alive. Jung believed this integration was the core of our human journey, not to achieve flawlessness, not to meet societal standards of success, but to be real, to uncover and live as your authentic self, embracing both your brilliance and your shadows. He once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And maybe now those words resonate more than ever. Because if you've come this far, a part of you has already begun to awaken. A gaze that looks inward with tenderness, an ear that hears its own quiet truth, a heart that's learning to welcome even the parts it once rejected. You were never broken, only scattered. Now with all the pieces laid before you, it's your decision. Continue living through the narrow lens of your dominant side, or start reclaiming every aspect of who you are. So the real question isn't, what's your personality type? It's what parts of yourself are you still hiding from? That is the invitation. That is the way forward. Not to change into someone else, but to finally return home to your full self. For much of our lives, we've been taught to conform, to pick one identity, one perspective, one version of being, and stick with it, unmoving, as if the richness of human existence could be summed up by a label or a few letters on a quiz. But Jung revealed something far more profound. You are not just your strongest trait. You are also the suppressed, the forgotten, the silenced within. You are the entirety, logic and emotion, confidence and uncertainty, presence and potential. You no longer have to live as if you're at odds with yourself. You can align with your true essence. And that alignment begins with truly knowing who you are. Not the shallow kind of self-awareness made of cliches or horoscope blurbs, but a sincere, sometimes uncomfortable insight that takes bravery to face what you've been avoiding. And yet that very confrontation is what sets you free. Because when you begin to truly grasp how your mind operates, your inner struggles start to make sense. your pain takes on new meaning, and your choices are no longer just automatic habits. They become intentional reflections of who you truly are. And maybe somewhere along this video you felt it. A quiet echo, a faint memory surfacing, as if something within you had started to stir, slowly finding its way back home. Now I want to share something with you. It's not meant for everyone, but it is meant for you, because you've come this far in your search for deeper truth about yourself and the path you're walking. What I created goes beyond just another book. It's a roadmap, a practical and philosophical manual that weaves together science, introspection, and critical thought to help you dismantle old beliefs, question long-held identities, and reconstruct yourself from the foundation up. This isn't one of those ebooks filled with inspirational fluff. It's a tool for those who are done living on autopilot. If you feel that inner voice rising, asking for change, for a breakthrough, for clarity, then maybe this is your turning point. Click the pinned comment and step into the manual of self-transformation. Don't approach it casually. Read it like your future depends on it, because in many ways it does. And if you decide to walk this path, know this: you won't be the same person by the time you reach the other side. I still remember the first time I encountered Jung's work. I was sitting in an old library, leafing through a forgotten book I hadn't even meant to open. But buried in its pages, hidden between complex terms and abstract diagrams, something lit a fire in me. For the first time, I felt seen in words, as if someone had described the exact thing I'd always felt but couldn't put into language. As if Jung were speaking directly to me, whispering, "You're not broken. You're simply trying to live with a part of yourself that hasn't woken up yet." And maybe that's the reminder you needed today, that you're not flawed, that you were never meant to squeeze yourself into a shape that doesn't fit. That real freedom isn't something you find out in the world. It's something you unlock within when you dare to accept all that you are, both your shadows and your brilliance, your reason and your emotion. If any part of this journey resonated with you, if you caught a glimpse of yourself in the mirror of everything we explored, then I invite you to take one more step. Drop a comment below. Which function do you think you've been hiding from? What side of you is asking to be acknowledged? And if this message made sense to you, then you already know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, share it, not out of routine, but because we both know. Just like your hidden self, the algorithm responds best when it's truly seen. And let's be real, if you've made it this far, you deserve content that doesn't dumb things down, but dives much deeper. Before you go, take a moment to explore the videos appearing on your screen. One of them might contain the next profound breakthrough for your awareness. Which one? You'll only discover by watching, because this path of self-exploration is just getting started.